Welcome to the Future Christian Podcast, your source for insights and ideas on how to lead your church in the 21st century. At the Future Christian Podcast, we talk to pastors, authors, and other faith leaders for helpful advice and practical wisdom to help you and your community of faith walk boldly into the future. Whether you're a pastor, church leader, or a passionate member of your faith community, this podcast is designed to challenge, inspire, and equip you with the tools you need for impactful ministry. And now for a little bit about the guest for this episode.
Welcome to the Future Christian Podcast. Today, Loren Richmond Jr. welcomes the Reverend Bethany Peerbolte to the podcast. Bethany is the founding pastor of Our Tapestry. This community meets entirely in digital spaces and gathers to declutter faith from abusive theology. She also creates Christian content on TikTok, seeking to meet younger generations where they scroll. The stories Bethany hears from her 286,000 plus followers about how churches have treated them inspires her ministry. The zip code someone lives in should not decide what kind of God they know. Everyone deserves access to the radical love of God. You can follow at Rev Bethany on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and learn more at Our Tapestry online. A reminder before we start today's conversation, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share Future Christian with a friend. Connect with Loren, Martha, and Future Christian on Instagram. Shoot us an email at loren@resonatemediapro.com with comments, questions, or ideas for future episodes. We appreciate your voice in how we faithfully discern the future of the church.
Hello and welcome to the Future Christian Podcast. This is Loren Richmond Jr., and today I'm pleased to be welcoming Reverend Bethany Peerbolte. Hello and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here. Anything else you want our listeners to know about you?
You know, with the internet, everything they need to know is out there. So follow me on any of the social medias. With the ban happening, I'm literally everywhere now. So just trying to figure out where the next step is. And just follow me and check me out, see what I'm all about.
Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to the ban here coming up. So I want to hear your insights there, your thoughts. Share, if you would, just come about your faith background and your faith journey, what that looks like today.
Yeah, so I grew up in Missouri Synod Lutheran, so a conservative church. Went to college, was planning on not going to church anymore because it really wasn't something, whatever. But it was a space I knew I could find friends that had the same values. And there was a church that had a 7 p.m. on Sunday. They'd pick me up from the dorm and give me dinner. And the dorms didn't have dinner on Sundays. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll keep going to church if they're going to feed me and pick me up and whatever. And an amazing pastor, Pastor David Dressel, just kind of understood students and showed me like what a pastor can be, gave me leadership roles. And when I went back home, I was leading youth group because I loved having a peer group, and fell in love with teaching scripture. And so I found a PCUSA church and was their youth person. Met my first female pastor when I was 24 and went to seminary. She was like, you should do this full time. And I was like, okay. So it's just kind of been following like the next couple of steps that the Spirit has put me on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. A really good pastor really is so helpful, right? For formation and growth and encouragement and yeah, awesome. What are some spiritual practices, one or more you're willing to share you find meaningful?
Yeah. So I just moved. I used to do this thing where when it rained, I have this like metallic drum. They call it, I think, up like a panda drum. It's got different notes on it, and put it out in the rain and like just let the rain play music. But now I don't have a patio, so that one's kind of gone away. I do try to like, just when I notice something, like stay in that awe moment a little bit longer. The normal reading scripture and praying and those kinds of things happen. I love labyrinths, like prayer labyrinths. I have a couple like finger labyrinths and things that I can trace, but then downtown Denver here, there's a couple of churches that have labyrinths that you can go in and walk as well. So I'm not someone who likes to sit still. So when I discovered prayer labyrinths, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can move and pray at the same time. This is awesome. So yeah, just a couple of those things. I like to play around with new things and see what happens. Any way that I can open up a communication channel with the Spirit. I take my dreams pretty seriously. And try to think about, what was I feeling last night? What was I trying to get in touch with? What was the Spirit trying to tell me in my dreams? So all those kinds of things kind of play into how I stay connected.
That's interesting. If I can ask follow up about your dreams, because again, in scripture, we see a lot of value being placed in dreams from obviously Joseph. Did Mary have a dream? I can't remember, right?
We've got Joseph and Mary, and then Joseph Old Testament. We've
Old
got
Testament Joseph, obviously.
Yeah, I think dreams. I've always been. I dream every night, and in college, I did this whole learn how to lucid dream thing, and there used to be a certification. I forget what seminary it is. Of DreamWorks, but I think they've just made it a PhD program. And I'm like, I've never wanted to get a PhD, but I would love to get a PhD in DreamWorks, and the way that God speaks to us through our dreams. For me, it's mostly it's not necessarily the stuff that is happening. It's the emotional journey that I'm on. When I was moving here, I would have a lot of dreams about not being able to pack up my luggage fast enough to get the plane. And I would have it over and over and over again. And I was like, what is going on here? And I just realized that there's a lot of stuff that I was worried about that I can't pack up. The friends, the, relationships, the things that I'm going to have to leave in Michigan when I move to Colorado. And, just realizing okay, the Spirit's asking me to take stock of these other things that I can't put into a box so that I make sure I'm maintaining these relationships. And I wasn't doing that at the time. I was just kind of let's go. So it was nice to okay, we need to spend some time thinking about these things.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm reminded when I was out of high school, I used to have the same themed dream again and again about being on the high school basketball team, and always the recurring theme was I never quite made it back to an event or a game, and I finally realized I guess I miss being on the high school basketball team and hanging out with the guys and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It is really interesting. Yeah. Let's talk about what we're here to talk about, and that is you as what even title do I give you then? I've seen some articles, TikTok pastor or social media pastor. How do you identify yourself?
This has definitely been a journey of just accepting things that the titles I wouldn't normally So TikTok pastor, absolutely. I have learned that I need to own that. Social media evangelist, public theologian, those kinds of things that I would never evangelism. I don't want to get into that. That's a gross word, but that's exactly what I do. I am evangelizing for the progressive Christian theology out there. So yeah, TikTok pastors is good. It's remarkable to think how many people would claim me as their pastor. 280,000 followers. But I would say a good chunk of them, reach out to me when they have a spiritual question or something going on in their life. And so it's yeah, I have to accept I am their pastor.
Wow. That is interesting. Okay, so let's kind of get into the history. We're going to talk a little bit about philosophy and, hopefully get some practical things too. But let's start. How did you start getting into using TikTok and social media for ministry? What kind of inspired you to want to use this as a theological or, like you said, evangelism platform?
Yeah, it was COVID. It's September of 2020. We had been in and out of lockdowns, and I was a youth pastor at the time. So I was making some videos just to send out to them. But I started making those videos because when I was making the phone calls, family started being like, wow, we're talking a lot about hell around the dinner table. And I was like, okay. Talking to kids and them being like, do you think I'm a lukewarm Christian? I'm like, that is not a term you're hearing from our stuff. Like, where are you getting that? And it was TikTok. And I'd been on TikTok, but the algorithm is pretty good. And it knew like, I didn't want to hear that like Theo bro crying video. Like it never sent me those. So I asked the kids to start sending them to me and I made responses. From that, I have always kind of been someone who can translate biblical things into like the language of someone else. So seeing how jokes and things develop on TikTok, I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of like, Mary and Martha when Jesus opens up Lazarus' tomb and like, oh no, it's going to smell that, like I could see how those played. And so I made those videos. And then the one that caught was me wearing a transgender pride colored stole. And people just being like, wait, what? Like you can wear that in a church. You can be a female pastor, even that, like we've been doing that for over 60 years. And even that was shocking to people. You can say Black Lives Matter, you can talk about, reproductive rights and you're not going to get in trouble. Like, no, this is all things that my denomination has already made statements on. And so from that, people were like, oh, wow, I didn't know that this theology was out there. And that is just like, okay, well, I can reach you. Like you're in these zip codes that I call them theological deserts. They only have one kind of theology in all the churches around them. So like I can reach you out there. So let's start making content. Let's start talking. Let's start doing Bible studies on Zoom and all that kind of stuff. It just kind of grew from there.
Now, as I understand it, that's really formalized into something more official, right?
Yeah. So our tapestry, our tapestry is the official like ministry.
Okay.
It's we meet on Tuesday nights, do Bible study. I do pastoral care calls. We do have like elbow to elbow events, which is like in person. I don't like to say in person because I'm still in my person when I'm online and in Zoom meetings. So we call them elbow to elbow events. We just try to create as much church as we can in digital spaces. We have a Discord so we can pray for each other and ask for support, celebrate with each other. So yeah, it's been really wonderful to see what the Spirit can create, even though we are all thousands of miles away from each other.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, like you said, depending on the part of the country, and especially if it's a small town, it's going to be hard for someone to find a church. I mean, I think, like you said, your terminology, I think, probably comes from food deserts, right? Simply theological deserts, like they're just not. And that does have an impact. So I can imagine folks. So I'm curious, like, how do folks, I don't spend a ton of time on TikTok, so my questions may be a little bit janky. Like, how do you find people? How do they find you? What do you hear from folks?
I mean, I think the only people who understand how an algorithm works are the people who wrote it and the Holy Spirit. Like, really, it is a lot of Holy Spirit stuff of, people being like, why are you on my For You page? But wait a second, I actually really needed to hear that today. It is a lot of that. I will say, you can use the hashtags. Once you get a following, the algorithm starts to know like kind of who follows you and what kind of other people might match that, profile. So yeah, it's For You page. It's scrolling through. It is a little bit of word of mouth. People share my videos with other people. And so then they, will follow me back as well. So it's just, it is this like wild world that it works. But the Spirit knows how to make it work somehow.
Well, I am relieved to hear that algorithms are not, I say this somewhat tongue in cheek, but in some seriousness, like it does seem like the algorithm has a way to shape and mold minds. And I'm glad to see that you've experienced God working amidst, in spite of whatever we want to call it, those algorithms. So that's cool to hear. What is it about What is it about TikTok? What is it about, again, you mentioned kind of other platforms you're using. What is it about, and I don't know if you want to go through platform, but platform, answer this how you want. What is it about these platforms that make, reaching out to people and connecting with people where they're at unique?
Yeah, I mean, TikTok specifically, the algorithm is really good at knowing people are multifaceted. That you're not just Christian, you can be progressive Christian or queer Christian or, so like Instagram, it's taken me a while to find the right side of Instagram because it kept pushing me into like just Christian general world. Yeah. And those people don't like me and they make it very clear and known that they don't like me. But the algorithm can't tell if a comment is a hate comment or a positive comment. So
yeah,
in Instagram's mind, it's going, oh, people are engaging. This is the right spot for her. And it's like, no, this is not the right spot for me, Instagram. But TikTok is like really good at being like, oh, it wasn't that. It's like slightly more like this. And it just can tweak itself really well. Red Note was the one that came out during the ban that was also owned in the Chinese sphere. And again, like in a week, I got 200 followers. There's just something about the way they've written this algorithm over there that they understand that people are not just one type of thing. They are many things. And they might be a different thing when they get on next week. Like they can really shift gears really quickly in their algorithm. So it is something that I hope we can find a way for everyone to get along so that we can keep it. Because social media is one of those things, like when you can scroll through, see other people's lives, see some joyful things, like it can be like a drug, right? Like it takes you completely out of your world, takes the edge off of whatever happened to you that day. And I think it should be used like we think about drugs, like in these smaller portions. It's a really great place. Yes, it's going to assume who you are. And so you can be intentional about, hey, I haven't seen anything from a Black creator. Let me go and search for that so that it doesn't put you into these pigeonholed corners. So there is a way to be really intentional with the people that you're following and the way that you're scrolling, to kind of take the advantages and the disadvantages, leave them, off to the side.
Okay, let me ask a quick question then, just like, because you mentioned Red Note, and I was like, I don't know what the heck she's talking about. But then I was just remembering, like I looked at my TikTok last night, hadn't looked in a while, and had a couple requests to follow me on Lemonade. What the heck is that a thing then? What is that?
So with the like looming ban, what's happening? Lemonade is an American app that creators are trying to go over to. There's one called Fanbase that's supposed to pull all of your fans and all of your material. I've deleted that one. It wasn't working. Red Note is another Chinese one. Like it's all in Mandarin. Like I might have signed up for the Chinese army. Like it was in Mandarin when I said, yes, I accept these terms.
Gonna get drafted.
But that was kind of like a, thumb in your nose at the man. Like, well, you don't want us talking to China. We're going to go talk to China, Instagram, your YouTube. There's one that's coming out that I'm really excited about called Neptune that is created by creators. But also the CEOs and stuff are all women. So I'm hoping they'll have some better terms for the haters, for the negative, social impact. I think they'll be really mindful of that. So yeah, there's lots of apps out there. And right now I'm kind of just like posting the same video on like 6 different apps going, I don't know where we're going to all end up, but I'll be there.
It feels like we are kind of in that time again where social media is going through a churn cycle. Like, cause again, like it was I really do miss Twitter. Like I really feel like Twitter was a really good platform for connecting with people, getting different ideas, talking to folks. And obviously like 2-3 years ago, that kind of got blown up. And now we're again in that kind of like word-based social media app, Blue Sky's coming in. Obviously Threads has tried to make an impact, but then folks are like, do I want like all my social media be under Meta and Zuck? So the same thing, I guess, is happening with the video based, right? It sounds like TikTok competition. So TBD, I guess, on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's everyone going, okay, if TikTok does get banned, there is a huge market of people that are going to be, looking for something. So who's going to win?
Yeah.
Is it going to be Instagram? Is it going to be something else? And so that's kind of why it's turning over because before we were all happy with TikTok. We're like,
Yeah.
we did it. It's good here.
Yeah.
So now we're just trying to find a place to put our head if that goes away.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the things you've kind of mentioned here offhand. Just obviously social media has been criticized for amplifying extreme voices, creating echo chambers. I mean, you kind of mentioned it, that in some algorithms, like they don't care if it's a like or a hate comment, like it raises profiles. And I think, again, I'm going to kind of devil's advocate here. Like that's kind of one of my hangups about social media is like someone can really just put anything out there and because it's going to get hates or likes, it's going to grow them. It's going to grow the comments, it's going to grow their reach, blah, blah, blah. And it's not necessarily like good content. So talk through that, how you navigate that.
Yeah. I mean, the rage bait is definitely a thing. It is, people will like misspell a word, on the screen, and then people will be like, it's at, not as, that's how it went away. I've used it a couple times just to like play around with like, can I get some rage bait, attraction? Again, like you just have to be aware that this is happening to you. I mean, it happens when you Google things. If I Google, what does the Bible say about abortion in Colorado, it's going to give me a different answer than if I do that in North Carolina.
Yeah.
We just have to be aware that we are being manipulated. Like there is no, there's no going around that anymore. Teach our kids, teach our parents, our grandparents, like you are being manipulated. But then once you know that, then you can do the 2, 3, 4 steps to readjust. You can go to page 3 and see, what else does it say? You can ask a better question, to get a better search result. You can look at different hashtags and readjust who you're following. So you can be really intentional and kind of, but again, like if you're going on there just to like feel good and see good things, then you're not being intentional about it. I kind of like once a week, I'm like, okay, let me go through with intention and see who's coming up on my For You page. There are apps like Instagram. I don't know if they've rolled it out yet. Started some things where it changes the way your For You page comes up, where like you see the people you're following first, to kind of get rid of this like doom scrolling of all this new content. Like show me the people I care about first, and then I'll go and do some other things. TikTok has just started. You can turn on and off different topics. So like I was on vacation a couple weeks ago, and I turned off the like social commentary current events tab.
Sure. Yeah.
So that like I just don't want to see it. I'm on vacation, right? Yeah. Turn up the puppies, turn up the good stuff while I'm on vacation. Yeah. So there are features that these apps are like hearing us say, hey, this is really weird. I don't like this. They're giving us features. We just have to know that they exist and actually engage them.
Okay. Forgive me for staying on this, like, all the bad sides of social media, but I feel like I have to ask these questions.
Yeah.
So what was it, a few years ago, right? There was a documentary on, was it Netflix, about like all those Facebook and all those kind of social media engineers talking about just how it's like engineered to, I mean, you use a word, to be used like a drug.
Yep.
So we know this to be true. How do you then, like make sure you're not kind of feeding into that? I mean, again, I want to acknowledge like this is a very controversial, or not controversial, it's a very complex, complicated situation, because like to not be on these spaces, just to not be like, it just be like, oh yeah, we're going to pretend all these people don't exist. Like, I don't think that's an option. Just not be on those spaces. So how do you utilize the space without feeling like you're feeding into like the constant like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a creator, I know my message is one to lift people up. I am focused on like, how do you engage with your theology better? So, I'm very sure I know what my message is. And so if people are following me, that's, what they're going to get from me. I try not to use the like rage bait, manipulation stuff, but those numbers are really enticing. Like I will say last year, I did a lot of wrestling of like, oh, like the bots are going away. Now the numbers are going down, or like, and how do I get those numbers up again? This one got more likes. And so why don't I create another video exactly like that to get more likes? Why don't I, it is something that you have to be very aware of. And as a creator, now that this is my job, I have that ability. But I can see, teenagers who are just kind of posting things here and there, how it can be really hurtful and harmful to them to be like, oh, I need to get more likes. I need to get more comments.
Yeah.
But again, we're not getting away from it. Like if it's not TikTok, it's going to be something else. It's going to be Facebook. It's going to be, so we just have to know, we just have to do some parenting of ourselves and the next generation to say, this is how you kind of stop that cycle when you start feeling this way, do this other thing, and teach ourselves how to get away from that. I mean, you can block people, if you see someone coming up who's like doing the manipulative crying, I need you to know Jesus, you can block them. I wish my haters would do that more often. Like, stop engaging with me. Just block me, please. Someone commented last week, like, I wish you would go away. And I kind of like tongue in like cheeky. I was like, there's actually this great feature on this app called Block that you can make me go away forever. But they just don't. They just love to comment and see if they can get under my skin. And, sometimes they do. And most of the time I just laugh and roll my eyes and block them.
Okay, this is good. So how do you what do you do for yourself maybe to kind of stay, not so you're not staring at your phone all day? What do you help coach? I don't know what the word is, like your followers. What's your own kind of thing you can recommend?
Yeah. I mean, so the hater comments are one of the things that like I have had to learn. I want to come back. I want to engage. Like I want to and so like when I'm feeling that like high up in my chest,
Zinger.
I know that's a different feeling than if I'm like actually trying to educate and engage and be, more loving. So I've learned like, okay, if that's the energy I'm feeling up here in my chest, I'm not going to respond.
Yeah.
I did take like a break of, and I'm coming to the end of it, of like not engaging with haters. I've broken that a couple times, but it's really helped me hone in how and who I want to actually engage with.
Yes.
So giving myself permission to just be like, just delete and block. Delete and block. I will, for my personal like scrolling, I will there on TikTok, there's a way you like press and hold and it can say, I don't want to see this. I'm not interested. So you can kind of train the algorithm a little bit. And I will say, since that quick ban happened, I have seen more MAGA content on my page than I've ever seen before. I've never seen any of that. And I see it at least 3 or 4 videos a day of it. And I'm like, why? Why is it just suddenly coming up? So like, my government is afraid of me being manipulated by China, but totally okay with manipulating me themselves is essentially what that is.
Yeah.
So you notice those things, you block the creator, you say, I'm not interested in this content. Actually doing those things, don't just scroll by. Actually doing those things are the things that's going to save you in the long run. So that's why I try to tell people, looking up hashtags. If you don't see any Black creators or queer creators or disabled creators, like go and look it up and then watch a couple of those videos, like them, comment on them, follow people, and your algorithm will start to redirect itself and recorrect and say, okay, this person does want to see this stuff.
Okay, last like hard question I have to ask, because you kind of mentioned this whole, when was that? Like, was it November? January 6th? When was the date?
No, the 19th. It was after the inauguration. No, it was right before the inauguration. Yeah.
That's right. I have January 6th in my mind for other reasons. We won't get on that. So January 19th, right? Like it went dark and it was like so, I don't want to get into that frustratingness of the back and forth talk.
Yeah.
That being said, I think, excuse me, I think there is some element, again, this is my perspective, like I have stacks of books all around me that I read, and I think like reading books is probably a more useful time, but I do enjoy like flipping through videos too. But again, devil's advocate, like, is there some merit to this idea that like TikTok is kind of melting our brain, A, and like B, like it's kind of ruining the conversation? Because like you said, whether it's China who's manipulating us, whether it's far right voices who are manipulating us, like, again, this is a high level cynical question, but like is TikTok, I mean, really, is social media like worth the mess, the potential mess?
I will say, the thing I think the ban is truly about is that on social media, they can't control the narrative. So I follow mothers in Palestine. And so I get to see exactly what is happening on the ground in the moment from the people who are experiencing it. My government can't control that narrative. And that, I think, is what they are mostly afraid of, that we are able to talk directly to each other, to learn to love each other. And so they can't tell us who is the bad guy. And that, I think, is the thing that scares the man the most about social media, and the thing I think is the biggest value of social media, is that I can find out. I follow someone who doesn't have arms. They do their makeup every morning. It is amazing. So now when I see someone who doesn't have arms, I'm not going to think, oh, they're not able to A, B, or C. I know that they probably can, and probably better than I can. So it's a very amazing social teaching tool. I know more about transgender surgery because there's someone out there who is willing to answer the questions that I would never ask any of my trans friends because it is an inappropriate question to ask. But I can hear the answer from someone who is willing to be a teacher for their experience. And that's what I think social media, why we need it. And put humans in any kind of space, we will screw it up.
This is true.
It will be a hellhole because humans just love to make spaces hellholes. But if we can focus on why it is important for us to be social and be together, social media just amplifies that.
I'm appreciating that last point you made about human nature. I mean, certainly in Christian teaching, we have language, we have theological language around that. We can dispute or we can debate like the finer elements of the sin nature or the sin element of humanity. But I think that's an important point, like that I think is not talked about enough. I'm thinking of past guests who have made this point. Like, again, I'm thinking Ted Smith, Elesha Coffman, who've kind of made this point, like humans are going to human whatever context we're in. So I think I'm glad you made that point. So I'll kind of back off these hard-hitting questions here and throw you throw you a break here. So this is kind of, I think you kind of might have addressed this point, but let's just go to this just for specifically. What are the biggest misconceptions that folks have? So like, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're working in the Peace USA space primarily, right? Or at least that's your church tradition. What are like folks being like, when you're at a clergy gathering or you're in like a official church thing where there's clergy and there's lay folks, what are people like? Oh, here's Reverend Bethany, like TikTok pastor. What are the biggest misconceptions that folks are giving you?
Yeah, I mean, I do think talking about it as evangelism has helped a lot in that kind of idea of like, why do we do this? I just wrote an article for Presbyterian Outlook magazine about like the need for public theology. And I think that has helped. But yeah, when I wrote the first grants, it was like, okay, cool. And then when are you going to actually start a church? And I'm like, hold on. We are actually a church. We do Bible study. We have worship times. We're not worshiping Sunday at 10 a.m. But we have a Discord where someone comes in and goes, my nephew was murdered just now. Well, then we're all gathering together right then and there in that space, sending prayers and talking with them and checking in on them. Like that is worship. That is us being together.
Being the body of Christ.
So, it happens in different ways. I think, a lot of misconception. I love when like the older clergy will like come up to me and be like, oh, but TikTok's just a bunch of half naked dancing girls. And I was like, oh, you just told on yourself, because that means that those are the videos you're watching all the way to the end. Like you don't have to engage or like or comment, but if you watch a video to the end, that algorithm knows you like it. And so it's going to send you another one. And so, you just told on yourself on what you're doing with your social media content. So like people think like, oh, the algorithm's racist. Well, it's the people that use the algorithm to tell it what to do. And so it's probably the people that are racist.
Mm-hmm.
So just like some of those misconceptions about the space that I'm using. Yeah. Is it a real ministry? Am I a real pastor? All that kind of stuff. I mean, that's why I'm really glad that I initially went with the name Rev Bethany
Mm-hmm.
and not something else, because I'm like, I am a reverend. I have that title. And it's been important for people to see like a pastor saying these things, saying God loves you.
Right.
So I think people just don't understand the impact. Is this the end goal? What is the end goal? This is the end goal. Like the end goal is that more people know God loves them. And that's what I do every day.
Well, that's leads to another question I was going to ask. Like thinking about the end goal, like I think I listened to a podcast with you being interviewed some time ago, and I remember there being discussion about like some of the work you do is to helping people find a church, get into a different church. Talk more about like, I guess I'd say it this way. Like, I think there's certainly in our context, in our culture, like there's gonna some people, like I wish it were different. Like I wish folks felt comfortable. I wish their church is comfortable for them where they could just walk into a church again. But I think realistically that's not possible. Like, so I almost think of some of what you do is like missionary work, which I know that's a loaded title, but since we're using evangelism, we can say missionary work, right? Like you're trying to reintroduce people to the faith in some way. Like, so I don't want to say, because end goal is very like specific, but like, what do you see as like some of your different outcome goals? Like, obviously you mentioned like showing people God loves them. Like, is getting people back in a church part of your goal? What does that look like?
Yeah, our tapestry is a bit of a triage tent, where people come in really hurt, and some of them heal to the point of like, oh, I'll go to church. Like last Easter, I think these are just people who told me, like 11 people actually told me their families walked into a church for the first time in years.
Wow.
So some of them do heal enough to go back into those spaces. Some people are, my pastoral care calls are like, please don't believe in God anymore, because that word God and that relationship is so toxic and abusive. Like who you think God is not who I believe God is, but they need to drop God for a little while before they maybe hopefully will rebuild that. So some people it's just like, let's unpack enough religious trauma so you can live your life away from the church and not have this come up constantly. Religious trauma is, I would say, the worst because it is your worth. It is your purpose. It is the quintessential, why do I exist and why do, that permeates everything about you. Like I've got people who can't drive over bridges because the idea of bridging over to the next life is terrifying to them because they think they're going to hell. Like it really gets in there. So religious trauma, if people can just drop a little bit of that with me and then move on, great. But I mean, I talk a lot about decluttering faith. We've got this whole deconstruction thing. I think that word's being used in ways now that I don't like. So I talk about decluttering. Faith needs to be decluttered for your whole life, just like your living room. We need to move some things around. There are things in faith and theology that we have put in the bathroom that no one talks about that we need to bring out into the living room. We need to talk about it. So this language of decluttering, and there'll be a book coming soon.
I'm excited. Let me know when that's, because I'm excited about that.
It's really helpful for people to when I start talking about decluttering, because they understand that. Yes, there are times in your life of decluttering that you just put it in a box, you put it in a closet. That's great. Love it. Do it. And then hopefully there's a time we pull that box out again. So our tapestry, there are people who are going back to church. There are people who live in like, big cities that are like, oh, they're not in a theological desert per se, but the building of a church is terrifying to them.
Sure.
And so if I can, like our last elbow to elbow event was here in Denver. I took the group to a church where I was preaching at, and they were like, we sat through a whole church service, like liturgical church service, and I didn't feel shame or guilt. They're like, this is possible. I'm like, I've been telling you it's possible. But for them, for me to be with them in that has been really helpful. So I want to do that more, to just like show up in town and say, let's go to this church. One person went into the bathroom and there was a picture of Jesus laughing, and they came out and they're like, Rev, can Jesus laugh? And I'm like, yes. But they came from the space where Jesus was always very stoic and, sad or, teaching. And like, it didn't dawn on them that Jesus laughs. And that, just seeing that picture, but they weren't going to walk in that building unless I was with them. Yeah. And we had already done work for them to be like, okay, let's give it a chance. So that's what our tapestry, and some people I think will probably just stay with our tapestry for a long time. Like, it's just not, they're not going to go back into another kind of Christian space, which is also totally fine.
I'm so intrigued. We're going to have to talk more about this. I'm so intrigued by your decluttering versus deconstruction. Like, I feel like every day I still get sent books on deconstruction. I'm like, haven't we like worn the heck out of this theme already? Like, enough?
I know the reason the book isn't out yet, because I'm like, the world does not need another, book. But I think,
with all due respect to like first time authors getting published, like, good for you. I'm excited for you. Like, that's a goal of mine too, I think someday, but like, so good for you if that's your thing. But also, like, I mean, I am kind of just over like this whole, like, let's just take a sledgehammer to everything. So I'm really intrigued by your model of like, we're going to declutter.
Yeah. There's good stuff we've gotten from churches with bad theology.
Mm-hmm.
They every once in a while they get it right.
Yeah.
Even my church, Missouri Synod Lutheran, I don't agree with a lot of what they do, but I learned that at church you find family, you find people that will support you, that will show up. That's a beautiful, I don't want to deconstruct that. Right. That's right. That's correct. I don't need to do anything with that, but there are things around it that I need to get rid of.
Okay, well, TBD, folks, TBD on that. Okay, one more question here before we take a break. This is kind of broad, so again, answer this how you want, but how do you think you being a TikTok pastor, you being a social media pastor, how is that, like, what are some ways you'd be like, oh my goodness, I didn't see that coming, or this is really, my perspective has really changed? Share a couple of those.
I mean, the biggest thing is, like, progressive Christians, we need to realize the voice on the other side is so loud and so hurtful. One of the things that like I really need to push within my own community is like, leave a kind comment. You may think, oh, this creator gets all sorts of good stuff. The kind comments, the smiley faces mean the world to me, because I might have another video that is going viral on a side of TikTok that I don't want to be on. And like 2 weeks ago, I blocked 300 people on Instagram.
Holy smokes.
300 people in 1 week. They were all Christian. Every single one of their bios had Jesus is King or some Bible verse. So like, our Christian siblings are really screwing this up for us. Like, we can lament the church is dying, but there's a lot of the church that needs to die. And so we need to be louder. We need to be more supportive of those voices that are giving out a gospel of truth. That is one thing that drives me nuts. But I have solidified, I mean, it's always a work in progress, but I am pretty good with my body image now, because the haters have tried to come at me with every single thing. They have never mentioned the two things I would say are like my biggest flaws. They've never mentioned them. They'll say things like, oh, nice wig. I'm like, wigs are perfect. Thank you. What are you talking about? Or they'll like say something. I'm like, that is just the most ridiculous thing. That is not how my body looks. So to know that like the people who are actively trying to hurt me haven't noticed the flaws that I look at when I look in the mirror is like, okay, Bethany, you are meaner to yourself than the meanest troll on the internet. Stop it. So they have taught me a lot of things that I have, for my self-confidence. I worked in youth ministry and I thought I knew what online bullying was. I can't imagine if I got these comments from people who I actually knew.
Wow.
Like, we really need to be much more active with how we're dealing with bullying, which is why I'm excited about Neptune, because I think they're going to have some cool controls on there to help with like internet bullying. There was something else. Say the question again, because there was something I was going to go down a not so negative route as well.
No, I think, so I think you shared some like ways that it's been negative, but what are some positive, like, view changing things or perspectives that have shifted positively?
Yeah. As a pastor, there are things you think about in seminary that your people are going to ask you about. The internet is where people actually ask them. What version should I be reading, Pastor? What does the Bible, like, when you're in person and looking eye to eye with your pastor, you don't want to admit what you don't know, kind of thing.
Right.
I had a youth who had been in my youth group for years, did confirmation with me, never asked me a single question. They're not that person. After maybe a month making videos on TikTok, they asked me a question. They asked me a really good question. They said, why does the church have a bad relationship with sex? Like, what? So the anonymity is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
The anonymity allows people to ask you those questions and to open up and to be vulnerable in ways that they're not going to be in the pews, in the Bible study, in, online and looking you eye to eye. So those things have been really wonderful for me to actually hear what people are still hung up on. And then the other great thing is people still need the gospel.
Yeah.
Just general basic gospel. It still works. And that has been an amazing thing for me as a pastor to be like, you don't have to say anything creative in a sermon. You don't have to say anything remarkable. Just tell people about the gospel and what Jesus is. And that is, they still need it. They still need it. And that's been really great.
Okay, I told you the last question, but let me ask one more quick one. So you're mentioning Neptune. We talked about Lemonade. Again, we've talked about how this is kind of a transition time in social media. For me, I feel like constantly chasing after these platforms is just like exhausting because I'm like, I gotta create one for myself. I gotta make one for Future Christian, blah, blah, blah. Like, what are I feel like Instagram is here to stay. Obviously, Facebook feels pretty solid. Who knows? What do you think? What are the one or two folks
I would say where you are scrolling,
invest their time in?
Yeah, where you are scrolling is where you start.
Okay.
Because you know the culture, like missionary work. I knew the culture of TikTok. I knew the language. And then I started preaching in that culture. If you're a Twitter person, if you're, a Blue Sky person, start there.
Okay.
Really, it's this whole idea of like, go to the people, go to where they are. If you enjoy that platform, then you're going to know why other people enjoy it. So you're going to create content that you would enjoy and they will enjoy. So people will find you.
So for churches and pastors, then it's not necessarily like we need to be on every platform. It's like one or two we feel like
please
we can
don't
engage
be
with
on
well.
every platform.
Okay.
You will destroy yourself. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a break. And again, what's the handle then? I usually ask folks the title of the book. So I guess we need to say like, Bethany, what's your handle for folks to find you?
It's Rev Bethany everywhere. I've been very lucky that someone else hasn't gotten on there. Some platforms there's like a REV period Bethany, but if you put in Rev Bethany, it'll come up. And I think my picture everywhere is either me with the transgender stole on or me doing the Macarena in my collar. So you'll know it's me.
All right, let's take a quick break. Okay, we're back with Reverend Bethany Peerbolte. Thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot here about Neptune and Lemonade and all that. All right, closing questions. You're welcome to take these as seriously or not as you'd like to. Pope for a day. Or maybe, I feel like I need to tweak these then. If the Pope had a TikTok account, what would or should the Pope be TikToking?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, my initial reaction is very like Catholic focused of like, he needs to release all the information about all the sexual assault stuff. Like if they think they're going to make it through another couple decades, they need to get that scandal out of the way. But I think just like the Pope being fun, like doing dances and laughing and showing that you can be this like big leader and you're still a person. Yeah. Okay,
that's good. That was a good answer because I usually tell folks you can take it seriously or not. So you did both. That's good.
I did both. I will do
that's
both.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to kind of just like run with these and make these TikTok social media themed. what theologian or historical Christian figure would be the best follow? Again, you can do it just in general, per platform. What do you think?
Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
If I get to heaven and he's there and he says that he's proud of me, like, he is definitely one of the ones that I think about, because he was definitely a trailblazer in that like technology world and getting in front of people. And like, if he had social media, he could really, really help some people. So Fred Rogers, I wish he could have been around for this.
Okay, I feel like that's cheating, because that's like the answer all PCUSA folks say. So
it is. It really is.
Give me another. Like, would like Paul? I feel like he'd just crush it on like, Twitter or some kind of like blue sky type text based thing. I feel like Teresa of Avila would be like really depressing on any kind of video platform.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Man. I don't know. Maybe like a Marcus Borg, just like blowing stuff up and saying outrageous things. And
okay,
he would get, I think he would love all the haters that would come into his comments and be like, miracles are real, and all that kind of stuff. He would be fun.
I mean, okay, I'm a big Marcus Borg fan. I think he did allow, in one of his books, didn't he kind of allow for miracles?
My like always thought about him is always just like, he believes there are miracles, but they're not like these like paranormal like things. Like,
sure.
Like the feeding the 5,000 is like, it is a human miracle that everybody there either ate or passed along the food that they were planning to eat, to someone else. That is a human miracle for sure.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I wish I could sit down with him and go through every single miracle and be like, okay, what about this one? Okay, but what about this one?
Well, that's good. I have strong emotional connection, because that was like, his book was like kind of my branch or bridge, whatever, we want to use to find a more fuller, inclusive faith.
Yeah, he's one of those like declutter. He's coming to the table and just like knocking everything off and being like, okay, now what are we putting back on the table? Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? Again, I'm trying to think about these questions from a social media TikTok perspective. Like, if you had to guess, like, which social media platforms will exist in 5 to 10 years? And then, what do you think? B, like, what do you think, like, how will history remember social media platforms?
I mean, Instagram is pretty proven that it can change with the times. YouTube is not going anywhere fast. I think Facebook is there until the Xers are gone. So, okay. I think that's going to really die away. I don't know what's going to happen with these like short form. I do think it could be an Instagram Reels takes over. Especially because it can, go to different platforms, go to all these different, threads and Facebook and whatever. That's a really easy place for a creator to be and then kind of branch out. So I think those are going to be there. I think TikTok's here to stay. I mean, I think it might change once capitalism gets in there. The ads are going to be even worse, that kind of thing. But I think it's proven that it's beloved enough that it's going to be really hard to get rid of it for sure. How will this moment be remembered? I really hope it will be a testament to the power of the people's voice when the government gets scared or wants to do something, to limit that people are gonna, we might joke about it, we might share memes about it, but we're gonna talk about it. We're not gonna let them just, try to get rid of something without any evidence, which I think is the biggest problem in the TikTok ban case, that the government was able to redact so much. And even the lawyers of TikTok didn't get to see those, like, to say it's top secret and say, like, just trust us. We don't, this isn't good. Like, that's not how we do this. It could be that is remembered because it does go away, because we do have this season of, authoritarianism. But I'm I am still confident in the American system that we will eventually get back to like, okay, that's not what we do. Let's pull it back again. It's a great question, right? It's a great question of how much should the government be, keeping us safe from foreign governments on these devices. And there are things that they know that I don't know. But there needs to be more transparency in what they know and letting me know what they know. But I also think it'll be a time where we do get to talk to one another. We do get to know each other's stories. And so I think this will also be the beginning of an era where it's not a Wikipedia search. It's a person search.
Interesting.
Let me hear this from a person.
Yeah.
And I think that will be a really great thing for humanity globally, just that we can hear the nuances of a person's experience.
That's really interesting that you said that. And we need to end this because I need to get off. But I'm just thinking like that is a really stark but great example of this kind of shift culturally from institutionalism to individualism. Like Wikipedia is kind of like the last, I think, or most recent kind of institution, even if it's a different kind of institution, it's populist, democratically led, but it's still like an institution where we know we can find generally solid, reliable information versus now, like you're suggesting, I think this is true. People go to their content or find a content creator to find that information. So that's really interesting you said that. Last question here, because I do have to run. What is something hopeful that you hope to see from social media and Christianity combined?
Yeah, I'm really hopeful, and I think it ties into that Wikipedia thing. Is like the age of enlightenment has taught us how to know something and to nail it down and to put it in black and white. And hopefully we are getting way beyond that and know that life there are gray areas. There are things that it's true, but it's not true. It's, at the same time. And I think that will open up the world to spirituality.
Yes.
We've had this age of, we learn about physical health. We got doctors. We're in this age now of like mental health and our mind. Spiritual health has got to be next. Yeah. And so I think opening up and realizing more that there's more tension about life than just knowing something, that there's more in scripture than just what it says. It has to have experience infused with it for it to truly be alive and truly be meaningful. And I think we are getting there. The spiritual but not religious movement, I think, is getting to the point where we can be like Christian but not religious or something. We can nail it down a little bit more. But I'm really excited to see how the world starts to embrace spirituality.
Well, this is great. I really appreciate your thoughts here. Again, give your handles, give your website. Mostly it's handles, right?
Yeah, Rev Bethany, Rev-Bethany, or / what is the little line? It'll be in your notes.
Yeah.
.com is the website. You can also find our tapestry there as well, to join and be part of an online Christian community.
Okay, find her on all the socials then. Really enjoyed this conversation, Bethany. I always leave people with a word of peace. We always leave people with a word of peace. So may God's peace be with you.
And also with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on the Future Christian Podcast. The Future Christian Podcast is produced by Resonate Media. We love to hear from our listeners with questions, comments, and ideas for future episodes. Visit our website at future-christian.com and find the Connect with Us form at the bottom of the page to get in touch with Martha or Loren. But before you go, do us a favor. Subscribe to the pod to leave a review. It really helps us get this out to more people. Thanks, and go in peace.